It's the Final Word Daily. Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon. I'm here at Bristol after a compelling second day of the women's test match between England and India. Geoff, tell us all about it in the space of 30 seconds, please.
A crazy day of Test cricket. England's tail came out swinging. Shrubsole made 47, put on 70 with Sophia Dunkley, who was not out as they declared, 9 for 396. And then India's openers went to town, 167 they banged on, 96 for Shafali Verma on debut, 78 for Mandhana. And then wickets, 5 for 16 from nowhere, right at the end. 5 for 186 they ended up at. Harmanpreet there with Deepti Sharma to try to get them to the follow-on tomorrow. What a day.
Nicely done. It serves to listen to Charlotte Edwards when she talks, and she was very clear with me a number of times today. In women's test cricket, stuff happens in the final hour, and right she was with those 5 wickets, completely against the flow of play to an extent, but on the other hand, Shafali Verma was playing that way. She was looking to bring up her century in style. She would have been the youngest debutante centurion in women's test matches. In the end, she falls 4 runs short, like Ricky Ponting did way back in 1995, falling for 96. But what an innings. Crazy brave at times. I mean, from about the 4th over, she was opening up, moving leg side, trying to open up the offside like it was a T20 game. At different stages, she managed to bat quite conservatively leading up to tea, and then just after the break, and then she exploded again for 20 minutes. I mean, it was you couldn't look away. It was compelling viewing.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I think what I would really like to emphasise that I think will be lost in the way this is reported is her defence was excellent. She'd obviously been working really hard to prepare for this because, you know, as we've talked about, she'd never played red ball multi-day cricket in her life. She's 17 years old. It doesn't happen for women cricketers. So she'd come into a test match. This was her first taste of any sort of competitive cricket of that kind. And she'd prepared for it really well. She had an excellent sound defence when she chose to use it. And she didn't slog. She didn't come out and just go for whatever. She picked her deliveries. She didn't always time the shot. She had a couple of mishits that landed in the outfield and landed safely, but they weren't shots played to the wrong ball. She'd still picked the right delivery to go after. And the bit where she was stepping away a bit to the leg side, that was when Brunt started going short, and Verma wasn't entirely sure about how to handle it, and she did back away a couple of times. But she also used that backing away to give herself room to do things like guide down to deep third for boundaries, and punch through the offside. So when it was pitched up by Brunt in that same spell, Verma came forward and defended. She never backed away to a full delivery. She only backed away to shorter ones. So I think she made really good decisions throughout while still maintaining her attacking instinct.
Yeah, I think that's really well summed up. That one boundary she played through, I suppose it would have been at 5th slip, complete control, amazing timing. She brings that white ball sensibility to Test cricket. I mean, up against someone like Brunt, you raised her. Brunt and Shrubsole bowled a delightful opening spell. They were both basically perfect. The fact that they got through that first 6 or 7 overs speaks to their resilience and adaptation, really, before they were able to then transfer the pressure back onto England with the change bowlers, although Kate Cross bowled very, very well in her first spell. She ended up getting the wicket of Shafali Verma after tea, and that started the collapse. But, yeah, I just felt like that was tough yards. You've got Shrubsole and Brunt. Brunt's played international cricket for 17 years up against Shafali Verma, who is 17. I mean, it's a striking contrast between a veteran who's seen it all and the youthful exuberance of someone like Verma, who, as you say, has never played red ball cricket before, thrust onto this stage today and looked right at home. And down the other end, Mandhana wasn't at her absolute best, gave at least 3 chances, a caught and bowled to Cross, one dropped behind the wicket by Amy Jones up to the stumps, and a catch to cover put down by Sophia Dunkley not long after the tea break. But her stroke play when she was on was beautiful, especially down the ground and off the back foot through mid-wicket. She's made so many runs here at Bristol in the Kia Super League over the last couple of years. She looked right at home.
Yeah, there was a relatively basic method to Mandhana's game today. She did drive through the covers a couple of times, and she drove a lot and hit the field on the offside. But she was almost using the drive as her forward defensive. She was just following through a bit more, defending hard at the ball. But where she scored was with the pull shot, repeatedly, over and over again. Anything that's even at sort of knee roll height, Mandhana can pull that sort of length. That's a short ball to her. And so every time that it looked like, she hadn't scored for a little while, she got one just short enough to pull, and she went back and more often than not put them away. They had boundary riders out for her. She kept splitting those boundary riders and beating them. And so she scored prolifically off the back foot while Shafali was able to score off the front foot. So they matched each other. They really rattled Sophie Eccleston particularly. Shafali went after her her, came down the wicket, used her feet, hit down the ground, and disrupted Eccleston's accuracy. And Eccleston, the left-arm spinner, that's always been what she brings, is composure and accuracy, and that was thrown out for the first spell that she had today. Her pitch map was all over the shop. So they did really well up until that point. Pretty much the first mistake in terms of the wrong delivery to go after that Shafali made was when she was on 96, because she tried to drive a ball that wasn't really full enough for it, a bit like a couple of dismissals we've seen from her in white ball cricket. So that's when she was looking for the 100, but she also wasn't being worried about trying to score 100. She was just trying to score more boundaries. So that attitude, that's what really impressed.
Those who are watching the YouTube feed would have saw me waving at the camera just then. That was because Claire Connor, former guest of the Final Word and director of women's cricket at the ECB these days, just came over and wanted to be part of it for a moment there. So hi, Claire. Yes, I think all of that adds up as well. Really, what it did do was create an opening that England weren't going to miss out on. Right. So Verma makes the error, and I just sense that Heather Knight clicked into an extra gear as captain. She's captaining for the 100th time in this test match across the formats, of course. She's been leading for 5 years, and you could see that she sensed there was a window there, because until that point she had been fairly defensive. There'd been a long on and a long off deployed for probably too long, I would say. Often there was a deep point and 2 out on the leg side because Verma was so enigmatic, I suppose, with her stroke play. They needed to give themselves a number of sweepers on the boundary rope. But 1 wicket, in come the field. In comes the squeeze. Sophie Eccleston spun around to the pavilion end not long before the close of play. She gets herself on as well. Heather Knight has had a back problem recently. She said she could bowl this week, and we know in the past, Geoff, she's been a really good partnership breaker, a really tidy caught and bowled, a leg before wicket, Poonam Rao. Eccleston, a classic wicket. Mithali Raj, her shortest innings in Test cricket, would you believe? Her previous shortest innings was 3 deliveries, like 20 years ago, but she was out for 2. I watched her walk to the middle and walk back all in the space of 90 seconds or so. And it was such an exciting passage of play. The crowd were involved. All the lights were on. It was classic Test cricket.
And the real sort of moral victory for England in that session, in that section of the session rather, was getting rid of the night watchie, because Mithali Raj sent one in, sent in Shikhar Pandey, who chipped a catch back and didn't last very long. But it was 25 minutes to the close at that point. It was a bit early to try to send someone in ahead of you as a specialist bat, and so it just didn't feel right. It felt overly defensive from Mithali, and the England women were all over it. Their chat was coming through the stump marks very clearly, and they were all over Mithali Raj when she came out, saying, "Oh, she's had to come out to face the music. Here she is," having tried to avoid doing so. So that didn't really work. I think where things started to go off the rails was not so much Shafali getting out, because that could have happened at any time, but Poonam Rao at first drop. That was something I was concerned about, because she can be a real shotless wonder. I've watched her in one-day cricket a lot, and she's a very slow scorer even in the 50-over format. Having a skim through her numbers before, 72 innings in one-day cricket. Only once has she ever gone at a runner ball in her career. Her career strike rate's 58. More than half of her career innings have been under 50 as strike rates. She's slow in one-day cricket. She made a test ton at a strike rate of 30-odd. And she came out and did exactly what you'd expect. She faced 30-odd balls before getting off the mark. And I think that's what made Smriti Mandhana decide to try to go over the top, because there were no runs coming from the other end anymore. She felt that she had to play a bigger shot to keep things moving. And so her getting out, that's when things really started to go wrong for India at that point.
Yeah, and look, we'll come to the game situation in a moment, but for a time there, it felt like they were trending towards quite a problematic place, India. By that I mean we were going to get to a stage where they might be roughly at parity with England, and that's not going to help anybody. There's no chance of a result. I think counterintuitively, losing a few wickets here might actually give them a chance of winning the game, but we'll delve into that in a moment. Yep. I want to go back to the start of the day, though, Geoff, where Sophia Dunkley became the 10th English woman to make a half-century on her Test debut. She batted beautifully today. She came back having made 30-odd last night, but this morning, the way she resumed, maybe not even 30, might have been 20-something overnight, the way she batted with serious purpose, kept the board ticking over, drove beautifully, especially through cover. You wouldn't expect that from such a wide grip on the bat. The bottom hand's almost choking the splice, and the top hand's right up towards. I've rarely seen. I mean, by definition, you can't have a wider grip than that, because she's holding the top of the grip and the very bottom of it as well. But yet, you think that's going to be a leg side player. She's really not. She's an offside player. Uses her feet really well, and it gave her a chance to build, and so she did. And after lunch, she was joined by Anya Shrubsole for a bit of hit and giggle. Shrubsole smashed 47, by the way, out of a partnership of 56, and they called the whole thing off. Shrubsole's been in really good form with the bat of late, super effective, especially on a slow pitch. But Sophia Dunkley has got a long career ahead of her.
Yeah, the way her composure looked, it was the footwork most of all for me. She was always willing to change her position to address the ball depending on what needed to be done. That was her first response to so many deliveries, was to shift things around so that she could go to the leg side if she needed to turn herself around to go through the offside when need be. Very interesting when she was batting with Eccleston, two such bottom-handed players, and the Eccleston sort of clouts, as you'd expect from a bottom-handed player, through mid-on. She made 17 and was so upset with herself when she got out. You know, you don't get many opportunities to bat in Test cricket as a women's cricketer, and so she was disconsolate as she walked off after holing out. But yeah, Shrubsole had some fun, powerful hitting down the ground, and I suppose by the time, you know, Dunkley 74 not out by the close, you're thinking, well, they batted on for this long, maybe they could give her another 5 overs to try to go all out for a ton. But England looking for the result. It all depends on the follow-on. They're, about 60 runs away from the follow-on, India? And so if Harmanpreet and Deepti can get them there and then they're out or they declare shortly after that, well, maybe England will set them something. But I sort of doubt that'll happen. I reckon conservatism would rule England's decision making, even if they did have that opportunity, and they'd probably settle for the 2 points for the draw.
Yeah, and Geoff, I have a strong view about this. Look, I totally appreciate and respect the fact that 2 points is as good as a win in a white ball game in a multi-format series, and therefore why would you jeopardise that for 4 points? But I think there's a bigger picture at play here. I think that from an England perspective, the players all want to play more Test cricket, likewise Australia. India have now come to the party playing 2 Test matches in quick succession. We could want nothing more than a tight chase on the final day. That will do more for the advancement of the cause of women's cricket, even if India lose, or England lose for that matter, than a draw which peters out. And that's the risk if India get close to parity or past the follow-on mark. I think that India would be well placed either just getting beyond the follow-on and pulling the pin. If they have to follow on, okay, that's fine as well. That opens up the game for England. But if India get to that stage, I think the sooner that Heather Knight's side are batting again and thinking about what they might set India on the 4th day, the better. I don't think because if they leave it too late, then it'll take England too long to get to where they'll be satisfied to declare, be it, 260 or 280 or whatever it might be across 100 overs. They might be happy to stick them in for. Not too dissimilar to what Meg Lanning did down in Canterbury in 2015 when she set England 240 odd in about 80 overs and they won the Test match comfortably on a final day pitch. So I think that's a point to consider. Yes, there's the series. Yes, there's the points, but there is a bigger picture, and the best possible thing for women's cricket would be a close, tight finish where both teams can win. And sure, it might require some contriving of that. I get that doesn't always look good, but that's been happening in first-class cricket time immemorial. It's always been part of 4-day cricket because it's not that extra day, not the 5th day. Sometimes you need to get funky and creative as captains to give your team a chance to win, and often that will mean risking losing. And I think this is exactly the sort of game where I want to see that enterprising spirit rather than the other side of the coin, which will be, well, they shake hands at 4:30 on Saturday afternoon, take 2 points each, and the 3rd and 4th innings are non-existent or irrelevant at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, England have the chance to win if they can bowl India out short of the follow-on and make them follow on, but they probably won't because teams generally don't. So we will think about the player of the day we've got to pick. I think that one might have a pretty obvious candidate, and then I've got a couple of very spicy Hall of Fame moments for you. So let's think about cricket bats for 10 seconds, then we'll come back.
Woodstock Cricket, home of the finest handmade cricket bats and soft goods. Visit either our showroom or workshop and experience the magic for yourselves. For bookings, contact info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.
Final word daily, Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon. I want to give my player of the day to Sophia Dunkley. I just think that the importance of her role, not just in this team, but in the broader landscape of England cricket, it's cliched as all get up, but you can't be what you can't see. The fact that she's the first black woman playing Test cricket for England at a really important time, that huge smile on her face. She's an absolute joy to watch play cricket, and I can't wait to watch her do it for the next 15 years.
I fully appreciate your sentiment. Cannot go past Shafali Verma. The fact that as a teenager with no experience, she came out and just did what she does best. Wasn't afraid. Took them on. Took on the senior bowlers, took on Brunt, took on Shrubsole, and won. You know, the fact that the rest of her batting order didn't support her effort, that's not her fault. The fact she got out for 96, that's not really her fault either. You're allowed to make a few mistakes in an innings, but what she did was extraordinary today, absolutely extraordinary. And if she gets a shot, it would at a target of, say, 280 on the last day, it could be absolute box office cricket.
Couldn't agree more.
Hall of Fame.
Do you want to do some Hall of Fame? Yeah. You go first.
All right, I've got two suggestions. I'll give you one, then you tell me yours. Just a quick question. In your experience, do wicket keepers wear a protector when they stand up to the stumps?
I mean, yes, they do. I think we're into murky terrain here, but I'm going to go with yes, they do.
I'm just hoping that was the case, because when Natalie Civil was bowling today and Amy Jones was standing up to the stumps, she stopped one delivery right with nothing else. Everything was in the firing line that shouldn't have been. It looked extremely uncomfortable, and I just thought Amy Jones's courage should be saluted.
Duly noted. Moving straight along, I think I want to give my Hall of Fame entry to Mithali Raj. So much scrutiny on the over rate yesterday, missing out on 8 overs, and she'll surely be fined by the match referee at the end of the match. We all know that. To come out this morning and field so disdainfully, and to completely ignore the umpires repeatedly telling him to hurry up, and to only get 26 overs in the first session on day 2, after only getting 27 in the corresponding session in day 1, that takes some cheek, that takes some confidence, that takes some bravado. Mithali Raj has all of it. Look, she's not going to be touring this country again in reality, and look, it wasn't pretty cricket, and I do think we need a better solution than what we currently got to the scourge of slow over rates. And I know people hate me banging on about that, but it's how I feel, and I'm going to keep talking about it. But the other side of it is that Mithali Raj almost waving the umpires away. I'll have a bit of that.
Yep. And maybe when the ICC try to fine her, she'll just go on the run to Mexico or something. You're never getting my money. As an adjunct to that, I suppose we could also mention Smriti Mandhana's 10-minute toilet break when she just wandered off the field while batting, which was extensive. I don't know what was going on there, but something elaborate. But to attach onto your point, the 8-minute drinks interval in the first session. 8 minutes for a 2-minute drinks break.
There was one point when Julian Goswami got brought back into the attack, had the ball standing at the top of her mark, and between standing at the top of her mark and bowling the ball, it took 2 minutes. 2 minutes of Mithali talking to her, faffing around with the field. I mean, it was complete. I mean, 26 overs in women's test cricket would be, if you apply it and extrapolate it to the way how quickly they usually bowl their overs compared to men, if the men were behaving the same way, they'd get about 18 in a session. And what would we do if that happened? So I'll leave you with that parting thought.
All right, I'm done for the day. That's all I've got for you.
This has been the Final Word Daily. Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon. We'll be back to do it all again tomorrow with a twist. Tomorrow, I'll be at Bristol watching this game very closely. Geoff will still, of course, be at home there in the Swedish sauna setup he's got going on behind him there with the wooden panels. But he'll be keeping a closer eye on the World Test Championship final, provided it doesn't rain in Southampton. Who knows? The weather's about, as they say in these parts. It might rain here as well. More likely, Geoff, though, to rain at Southampton than it is to at Bristol. But either way, for the next...
If someone who's got the COVID vaccine could come down and control the weather for us with their new powers, that'd be great. Apparently that you can do that.
An extended Final Word Daily tomorrow covering 2 test matches. That's it for tonight, though. Adam Collins, Geoff Lemon. See you later.
Cheerio.